Hello and welcome to Roll for Topic, a roundtable discussion about topics related to running role-playing games. I'm Chris Salzman.
And I'm Andy Rao.
Andy, we are recording at kind of a different time for us, so I'm very curious what
Yes.
the energy is going to be like for this one. Yeah, it's not like the first thing in the morning, but it's definitely earlier than we normally do this. But yeah, so glad to have you back. So
Thank you.
yeah, for people who were listening, yeah, Andy was out last week, but he is back in fighting strength. So yeah, happy to have you.
Yeah, it
Yeah, so
depends on what I have to fight, I
yeah,
guess.
it does. Well, I mean, that's probably always true.
Right.
Yeah. So I had a question for you because I know that you and your son have been reading the Dungeon Crawler Carl, the first
That,
book.
that's right.
And yes, and like so I bring this up because right, like, we like to talk about what we're reading, but then like, this is in the lit RPG genre, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of ties back to the
Very related to our
yeah,
hobby here.
yeah, very related to our hobby. So I will say like up front, like so I sort of know what you're gonna say, but like I'll say up front that like I enjoy these books quite a bit. Like I
Yeah.
know a number of people do as well. And it sounds like your son enjoyed it. So I wanna like so I'm putting you, Andy, on the spot. I guess what have you thought about it, or what do you think about about that book?
Yeah. Well, my main thought is joy that my son likes it. My
Yeah,
son is a little tricky to find books that he will dig into.
yeah.
And he is on book number 2 of Dungeon Crawler
Nice.
Carl. And I mean, I guess you have to know him for this uh for this to land, but him asking to read a sequel is like, whoa,
Is it
success.
has that
Like,
ever like
so
ever happened?
I'm trying to think of the last time he finished a book and was like, I want to read the next one of these.
Oh
So
wow.
this is great. So
Yeah, that's great.
so I'm really happy about it. He is in the last year, he's gotten into role playing.
Hmm.
There's a D&D game at school that he's in,
Yeah.
but his main point of reference going into these books is he is a video gamer, like
Mm,
100% through.
yeah.
And so so he gets the D&D jokes. He gets even more the video game,
Yes.
like the riffs on video games.
Yeah. Yeah.
As for me, I read a ways into the first book, and yeah, I mean, I appreciate what it's doing. I wondered if it would be like terrible, but it's not. It is
Yeah, yeah.
just, but it's not for me.
It's
But
not
I
an
was
Andy book,
kind
yeah.
of pleased to see it wasn't just all Marvel quips, I guess,
Yes,
which is
yeah.
what I had worried it would be.
Yeah, yeah, it's, yes, and I think, because when we were talking about it before you started, I was just like, I don't know if you're gonna like this or hate it, but it is competently written at minimum.
Yeah.
And there are truly some, like, great parts to it too, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, but it's an interesting book because I think it does if it grabs you, like, all you wanna do is read the next one. I was on a
Yeah.
flight recently, and the person next to me was reading, I think, like, the
Oh,
5th one
yeah.
or something, so it's like a flight, and, like, it's these days, it's pretty rare to see someone, like, not on their phone or their tablet or something like that, so he's reading, like, a hardback copy of it, just, like, turning the page. I finally realized what he was doing. It's like, "Oh, man, like, that series is so fun." He's like, "Yeah, I've got the next one in my bag. As soon as I finish this one, I'm gonna grab the
Amazing.
neck." And not to like profile people, but like he did not look like a gamer nerd either. Either.
Yeah.
So I think for whatever reason, this series has kind of crossed over from like, yeah, I don't know, like the sorts of people who are going to read a self-published lit RPG book to like kind of the mainstream, which is really fascinating to me. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, you read a little bit of it, like it's very steeped in like RPG, like
It is.
like even just like vocabulary. Yeah.
Yeah, there early on in the first book, there's a gag that requires you to know how like scripted events in video games work. So
Hmm.
like the character's trying to get through a door, but the door won't open because there's like a certain number of enemies within
Yeah.
range. And
Yeah.
like that's something I like literally am playing video games right now where when I try to do something that's like, no, there's like still 2 enemies in the area. And like,
Yes, you got to go.
so
Yeah.
it just made me wonder. So my first thought was like, whoa, that's kind of a deep cut. Then I was like, what? Like, actually, is that a joke everyone gets? Like,
Hmm.
at this point, has everyone, even if you are a responsible person who no longer plays video games, I mean, do you get that? Has it just seeped into
Hmm.
everything so much that this humor that used to like be really niche is now just you can say it and everyone at the party will give a chuckle.
Yeah, yeah. It's so a friend of mine has this theory that like you can't go a single day without someone making a Star Wars or a Star Trek reference, right?
Hmm.
Like, and I mean those are properties that like are typically associated with nerds, but then at the same time you look at it and it's like, well, Star Wars, right, makes $1 billion every time
Right,
they
right, yeah,
release something. So it really is sort of like a broad thing. Like everybody knows who Baby Yoda is, right? Like it's just,
yeah,
like I would argue it's probably like what probably Baby Yoda is more well known than Mickey Mouse at this point. Like it's
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it's like, there's these things that I think we often think of as like these nerd touch points, but I think if you said like, "Oh, like I leveled up," like people understand that even if they're not playing video games or like, like you still hear people say like achievement unlocked, right? It's like
Yep,
they're still saying this kind of jokingly, although I mean, give the business guys a couple more years and they'll start using it
of
like
course,
with a straight
yes,
face.
of
But like,
course,
yeah, but it's like there are some of these things that I think have seeped into just like this is just how we talk now, that like again in like a couple hundred years they're gonna have like footnotes in these books being like, and this was a like
yeah.
this was a common trope in video games that you had to kill all the enemies before the door would open.
Yeah. Chris, you and I have been colleagues at work at times in the
Yeah.
past, and I think we have both been in corporate meetings where the idea of gamification
Oh
was
yeah.
brought up. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
we've moved on from that a little bit, but I remember there
yes.
was yeah, especially in like 2010 or
Yes.
so. I mean, that's all anybody could talk about was gamifying everything.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember the first time. So, like, you see this with the Marvel movies too, right? Like, oh, comic book, what a nerdy thing. And then you
Mhm.
think, like, oh, this is literally everyone in the world has
Mhm.
seen 15 of these movies, And I remember
Yeah.
the first time, years ago when the MCU was, really firing on all cylinders, I realized that I'm a nerd. I'm even a comic book nerd in some respects, and I know less about some of this
Mhm.
stuff now than people I would chat with at work
Yeah.
who knew more about like Black Panther's backstory, and
Mhm.
it's kind of like, okay, like things I think the cycle of history moves on,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I've got a friend who's very into the Marvel stuff, and I remember talking with him one time, and like I went like too deep with some sort of comic book knowledge, and like he just kind of
Yes.
like looked at like even despite the fact that he's at every movie day one,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. Like yeah, it was just like yeah, I made some reference to some comic, and he just looked at me like I was the biggest nerd he'd ever seen. I was like,
Well, I'm
oh yeah,
glad,
fair, yeah.
Chris, you can still out nerd anyone that you're talking to if you have to.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a hierarchy, right? Of like, yeah, I mean, what? So you're at the very top. What you have LARPers, and then it's like,
Yes.
yeah, and then it's tabletop players, and like, yeah, on and on from there.
So, hey, I have a quick question that's
Mhm.
related to the topic of this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, with the Dungeon Crawler Card books, I am curious. You have read quite a few of them now, right?
I've read all of them that have been released. Yes.
Okay. So, I'm curious. Have you uh, gotten any insight or lifted anything or made a mental note of like I should try that
Hmm.
the next time you run a role playing game?
That's an interesting question. I think like there's two things that series does particularly well. So I think the first one that sticks out to me is the escalation of power levels. So I mean, you didn't get far enough to really see this happen, but as they're moving through these books, they keep on getting like more and more powerful. They've got more and more spells and things like that. But the author Matt, I think it's Dinneman, he manages to do a really good job of continuing to ratchet up sort of like the stakes and the enemies and stuff to sort of meet that power level creep, right? Like so even though that they've got these like huge spells that can do damage, like I mean they could clear out that first dungeon in a single spell or whatever, right? It still sort of feels like there are stakes,
Hmm.
right? And like yeah, people can take damage, and not everybody has total plot armor plot
Yeah.
armor and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think that is something that has stuck out to me of like yeah, you like ratcheting up sort of that like kind of that danger as long like with the power level creeping up. Yeah, so I mean it's almost to the point where like like if you're running like traditional D&D, I mean you're thinking yeah, like once you hit level 15 like they're going to fight demigods and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, not seeing that as like sort of a downside of the system, but as sort of like a, yeah, it's something that you can really lean into. It's like, oh, like what are the sort of the unique challenges that you could bring that
Yeah.
way? Yeah, so I think that's really cool. I think the other thing is like there's just a ton of like loot and like weapons and armor and stuff like that that drop right in
Mhm.
those books too, and they're all really fun, right? And I think there's a lot of flavor that's added there. So I think like, yeah, this also intersects sort of like what I think like the cipher system does really well, of just like you're just kind of showered with like all these cool little extras all
Mm.
the time and encouraged to use them or equip them or whatever. You know, like, so I think like that to me is like, oh, like, I mean, I think the next time I run something I can lean into that a little bit more, of just like, let's just have kind of an array of like weird stuff you can play with, right? And
Yeah.
like some of it might break the game, but then I think it's up to you as the GM to sort of like figure out like, okay, well, that breaks the game, but like how can I, you know, meet that kind of meet that challenge myself. So yeah, those are the two big things that stick out to me.
Interesting. Yeah, that is also one of my favorite things about the Cypher system,
Hmm.
that you know, that kind of agreement at the table of like, if you just use all of the stuff I'm giving you, and I promise I'll keep it coming. Uh, Even though in the Cypher system games I played, people still hoard their ciphers
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just ingrained
I
behavior. But
know
yes,
it's hard. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you want to save them for the like for the right moment, but at the same time, it's
right,
like, yeah, you just gotta use them.
yeah.
Yeah. There's one other thing I wanted to just mention quickly. So and again, this is like a media thing. So I started playing Claire Obscure Expedition 33
Oh yeah.
recently. And it's truly excellent. Like, so if it works for you, it's a great game. I mean, it's like a love letter to, you know, 90s JRPGs, you know, 90s and early 2000s JRPGs. But you know, seen through sort of a lens of like French culture, to be honest, right?
Hmm.
It is really good. I finished the first act. I'm told that the story kind of continues to get really good. There's a lot of people who like will hear that I'm playing it and they're like, let me know as soon as you're done. I want to be able to talk about this,
Yeah, fun.
talk about this with you. Yeah, so it's really good. That's just a game recommendation. And then Slay the Spire 2 is my other game recommendation. If you know, you know. It's
Yeah,
yeah, that has come out in early access and it's consumed, I think, my life and John Corey of Zombie Strains, his life, and a couple other
yeah.
friends. Yeah.
My I know this isn't the video game podcast, but
Mhm,
this has a tie to tabletop games. So I took some time off of work after recently,
mhm.
and I binged a video game.
Oh, nice.
And it's like, it was a little bit of random. I played through a Vampire the Masquerade
Oh,
Bloodlines 2, which is a
okay.
our game titles are a little bit
Oh,
getting a little
that's a
ridiculous,
perfect title though. Yeah.
but yeah, it's a sequel to like a 20-year-old
Yeah.
game, a beloved game,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I binged through it, and you know, it got me thinking like, could I run this like tabletop? Like,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and the answer was, I don't think so. I don't think I have players that would really get into it, but
Yeah.
I don't have, I did dig out a few old books, you know, from the World of Darkness, and was
Yeah.
flipping through them and being like, yeah, I remember what it was like to be in the 90s and to be
Yes.
an edge lord, you know.
Yeah. Did
So
you play that back in the day?
no, not regularly.
Mhm,
I have played and run once or twice various games in the World of Darkness, but the
mhm,
one game in the 90s I did play most in the World of Darkness was Hunter, which
mhm.
was like the, you're a person and you can get revenge on all these pretentious like
Mm,
vampires and werewolves that are in your city.
yeah.
So
That actually sounds pretty great too.
yeah, I and that was just, I mean, that was a unique, the way that White Wolf like built out that world across all these game lines and hundreds of supplements.
Mhm.
That's where we get the term splat book, I think, from.
Oh, wow,
It
okay.
was just, it's just something, I don't think it's like economically feasible anymore.
Mhm.
It had all sorts of problems, you know, from a gameplay perspective, but it also was pretty fun. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, there's, if you are a vampire player, there's like dozens of books with chock full of like setting secrets and plot developments and cool stuff.
yeah.
So these days, you know, you get like one core book a year, you know, one book a year, and it's probably a much better way to produce a game line. But
Mhm.
you know, there was something about that pace of like 30 paperback supplements a year that was kind of appealing, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting.
None of them play tested or like,
Oh,
and then, there'd be like 5 authors of a book and like clearly they had never been in a room together or
yes.
discussed like what the book was about. And, just
Yeah,
it was kind of a glorious Wild West sort of era.
that's really kind of charming in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's like any other monster in popular culture other than like a vampire that can really sustain something like that. I think there's something just so, I don't know, like alluring. Like this is gonna sound like a pitch for like I love vampires, but like yeah, but like there's something about like that, like kind of like human but elevated and kind of like one step removed from humanity. That's
Yeah.
like really appealing, right? Like there's obviously, right, like kind of like you mentioned like the '90s edgelord, like right, there's that part of it too of like this, like I don't need society because I'm this ancient being being sort
Yeah.
of thing. But like yeah, but I mean like the thought of like picking up a vampire game, right, like is appealing because it's like it is a different sort of power fantasy
Yeah.
too, from like the typical like oh I'm a human but I'm like a human fighter, I'm a human sorcerer or something like that. It's like no, like I'm something like apart and we can kind of be these edge lords together or we can have sort of this thing that interacts with the human world, but we're still a part of it. Yeah, like yeah,
Yeah,
a
I
step
I
removed.
agree that, some maybe in a future episode we need to find ourselves like an old school vampire GM or something and just
Mm-hmm.
like pick their brain. But you can see it. So, in the vampire setting, there's all these other classic monsters and they all have their own game lines. There's
Mm-hmm.
werewolf, there's mages, there's changelings, there's ghosts, like there's all
Mm-hmm.
these other things. But there is just something about the vampire. Like, is it that with a vampire, I mean, you can tell a lot of stories, a lot of different types of story, and still have it feel like you're a vampire, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
Whereas with some of the other monsters, as cool as they may be, how many different types of story can you tell with a werewolf?
yeah, yeah,
Like some, but I don't think as many as like with a vampire. And so,
yeah.
I don't know. I do think it is pretty interesting. Think when flipping back through those old 90s RPG vampire books, one thing that stands out is even back then there was this incredible tension between like the way the game wanted you to play and the way everyone you knew in real life played, right? So the
Oh.
game is this like you're this tortured monster,
Mm-hmm.
everything is misery, you're the worst,
Mm-hmm.
you're, woe woe is you.
Yeah,
Everyone you knew played it. Everyone had it's the whole trend. Everyone you knew had a trench coat and dual katanas
yeah.
and submachine guns and
Yeah,
was playing, I'm a superhero but a vampire, right?
yeah, they're
You know,
playing Blade, yeah.
right. And I mean, I'm exaggerating for effect here, but even in the game itself, it couldn't like you can go so many ways with vampires. Like the game itself struggled to keep its own fan base, I think, playing the
Mm,
game that the authors wanted to be writing.
yeah.
So I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
maybe overstepping a little bit on
yeah.
that and exaggerating, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
There's
mean, I
something
think
to it.
there's something to that, like that kind of healthy tension between like the vision and what actually happens at the table. I think right,
Yeah.
like you got to kind of meet in the middle a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this is something like it comes up on our podcast quite a bit, like that, like a lot of D&D games and other kind of like fantasy RPG games like devolve into sort of like this like whimsical like
Hmm.
adventure sort of
Yeah.
stuff, and like very few games I think are written in a way that it's like they're encouraging that like oh like everybody should be telling jokes all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like but that's just
Hmm.
how I think humans interact, right? Like you're finally getting down to sit at the table, sit at the table with your friends, like you're gonna want to kind of joke around joke around a little bit. Like you don't want to sit down and be like play like this morbid morose group of vampires who aren't having any fun because they're so sad so sad
Right.
all the time, right? Like but I mean, but you also like I think you need something to bounce off of too, right? Like you sort of need that arch, like this is this is the vision of it, and then it's like well like okay, I mean I'm gonna meet you a little bit there, but like it's still gonna be
Yeah.
funny or fun for me to do this.
Well, I think that is an interesting topic.
Hmm.
The idea that there's just this like gravitational pull towards a certain way of playing an RPG, almost
Mm,
no matter what it is, you know?
mhm,
Like, I mean, just to keep with our vampire example, you know, you can write a book about how being a vampire is a curse and the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. But
mhm.
it also, you know, there's a whole chapter of combat powers, and
Yeah,
you can turn invisible and you can charm people to do what you want. And, you know,
yeah.
this whole array of RPG powers that just almost, it's not like that's opposed to the vampire as a curse thing, but it's just, its intention. It's going to be constantly in tension with that theme. And then when you bring to it like the the way that social gatherings will default to sort of jokey camaraderie
Mhm,
across almost any type of like activity, and I think you know, I find that kind of interesting.
mhm,
And you know, maybe some of the fun of vampire is or games, heavily themed games like that, that really want you to play a certain way, but are fighting maybe their own rules and
mhm.
fighting the just human nature of how we like to interact with our friends. I don't know, maybe that's part of the fun, right? But
Yeah,
it is kind of interesting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's I don't, have you ever watched What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show
Uh
or
yeah,
the
I watched the movie of
yeah okay
it. Yes,
yeah so
which
you
was amazingly funny.
yeah, it's really good. I mean, the show is fantastic too, but it sort of just takes that setup and it's like, well, what if we made a sitcom sort of sort
Yeah.
of out of it? Right. So it's super effective. It is so funny. It's like it's really great because it does take that like, like what if you are sort of this immortal being, right? Like what does that look like day to day? Right. Like so they do, right? They have to kind of figure out like, well, how are we gonna live together in this house, right? Because we're a bunch of vampires, but we still need to like, do chores or whatever,
Mhm.
right? Like so a lot of the humor comes from that like okay, you're an immortal being but you still sort of have to exist in this world in some way.
Yeah.
Like and you still might have wants and desires outside of just like I need blood. I need to feed every night, right? Like you you probably want companionship or whatever, right? So there's a lot to explore there, I think. That is really fun. And like to me like that I can't imagine playing vampire like these days and not looking at What We Do in the Shadows as a touch point
Mhm.
for
Yep.
like how to think about that. So it's not just Interview with a Vampire. It's like there's an element of that, but there's also kind of this What We Do in the Shadows kind of like lurking back there of like yeah like what if you had a roommate for 200 years? Like what sort of like what sort of arguments would you have over the course of the years? Like yeah
Right, right.
all those
Yeah.
sorts of things. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, it's interesting. The other thing that I was thinking about too is like, so I've got a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old, but I mean like kids love sort of playing I don't know, like my 5-year-old loves to wrestle and stuff, right? Like in like something you
Yeah.
do, like you just do this with kids, like you pretend to like eat them, right? Like they're
Mhm.
like wouldn't that be
Yes.
that? But like that's just funny.
One of the weird things that every parent just kind of
Yeah,
instinctively does at some point, that
yeah,
is that probably is weird, but
yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah, it does feel weird, but it also I think it is this kind of like basic like desire of like, oh, I'm gonna like you're so cute, I'm gonna eat you up, right? Like
yeah.
that sort of thing. And like in some ways, I feel like vampires takes that sense of like, oh, this is a fun and good thing to do with my children,
Yeah.
and like turns it into like oh, but like what if you actually had to do that, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Chris,
So something very
I need
primal
you to
about that.
run a game of Vampire because I think it might be the most messed up thing, like, that
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I really need you to think about running a game of
Yeah,
Vampire.
okay. Yeah. I don't know if I have it in me, but yeah. Anyway, that's sort of a digression, but I am thinking about that in terms of like, yeah, like if we think about like the monsters that are really effective, I think a lot of it is sort of the monsters that make sense to a child, make
Yeah.
sense to a child, or like yeah, or kind of like come out of like I don't know that sense of like when you're a kid, you want to be scared every once in a while. Like you don't want to be afraid, right? But like you want to
Yeah.
be scared, right? Like you want your parents to jump out every once in a while and spook you and be like, like jump scare.
Mhm.
Like those sorts of things are really exciting and fun for a kid, right? And it's like that is the real. And then I think when you get older and you're looking for like kind of monster stuff or scary movies and stuff, like those are the things that you gravitate towards. It's like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like oh, like I want that sense of like that jump scare, right? Like there's something about that
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah,
appealing.
you want the thrill within, you know, with you within the boundaries of, you know, on some level you're actually quite safe.
Yeah,
So, but you want to taste a little bit of what it might be like to not feel safe, right? It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the awesome part of watching horror movies and reading horror stuff, and I guess
Yeah.
playing horror games too.
Yeah, yeah, I just wish I could handle handle them more. There's so much, yeah.
We'll get you there. We'll get you.
Yeah, eventually.
We'll start with your messed up vampire game, and then
Yeah.
we'll proceed from there.
We'll
So
keep going, yeah. Okay, cool. So we've been going for a little bit. I had one question that I did wanna ask you. This was gonna be kind of our topic, and it might not be a big discussion, but we'll see,
sure.
maybe, yeah. One thing I've been thinking about lately, so I've been playing a game, with Matt Wilson, and it's in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, and it's really great, and like we're having tons of fun. And we're now maybe like, are we a year, 2 years into the campaign, something like that? And I'm
Amazing, by the
realizing,
way.
oh yeah,
Congrats.
yeah, it's great. I mean, like that, this group has been together for over a decade at this point.
Yeah,
I
incredible.
love it. But I'm realizing that the character that I'm playing, like the way that I want to play her is does not match up with the character sheet that I created right at the
Hmm.
beginning.
Yep.
Yeah. So the question that I had for you was like how do you handle like requests to respec, right? What I
Yep.
really want to do is say like, okay, cool. Like I got all this experience and I've got all these points that I could assign. Like I'd love to sort of start from scratch and like not reinvent the character necessarily, but I want to like manipulate this to sort of like start to fit a little bit more of like the emerging vision of what I have for this character, especially as we get into it, and we're like we're a good ways into the game. Some of the characters are like, and these players are just better at this, right? I'm just not very good at like thinking through thinking this through. Like they've min maxed their characters a little bit to the point where they're effectively doing like what they wanted them to do from like the start of the game,
Yeah.
and I'm just not quite feeling that with my character. And I think that's okay to not have it like totally min max, but like I'm also feeling like there's ways that I want this character, right? Like she's sort of a sorcerer. She uses like this she's a seamstress, so she uses like this needle and thread magic and
Yeah.
stuff. And like I just don't have enough points in my magic. My
Yep.
magic pulls and stuff like that. So anyway, so my question for you is like how do you handle have you had character or had players ever asked to respec their characters? Yeah.
So yes, not a lot though,
Hmm.
and not it. My attitude towards it these days is if I play relatively infrequently, and the goal is to have fun. That's really
Hmm.
about it. So my answer to the question of like it would be more fun if I could swap my points around and rebuild my character. My answer to you is going to be sure. Like
Yeah.
absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just on a practical level.
Hmm.
Now, in generally speaking, I am fully the reason you just stated for wanting to redo your character sheet is, in my opinion, the exact right one. I
Hmm.
have a vision for the way I want to play the character, but either because I made a mistake or I didn't know the rules well, or for whatever other reason, uh, this character is mechanically built in a way that like makes it impossible for me to play them the way I want. You're not
Yeah.
asking for superpowers. You're not
Hmm.
asking to break the rules or have exceptions made for your character.
Hmm.
I think that's a totally legit reason to respec. And I personally would have no problem with you doing that.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons is because this is an even worse problem in some video games, by the way. But in an RPG, you're being asked to like I mean, you've been playing D&D for a long enough time that you know the pitfalls of like the D&D mechanics. So
Hmm.
when you, Chris, with years of playing D&D and running D&D under your belt, sit down to make a D&D character, you're not likely to make a big mechanical mistake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But like let's say you're sitting down to play GURPS for the first time
Hmm.
and you're building your character, like you're being asked to make decisions that the game considers pretty permanent, but you haven't even had a chance to like test them out and
Yes.
see how they work. So, what happens if you put all your points into something that ends up not working at all the way you thought it would?
Hmm.
Right? Well, I think most GMs in that case would say, yeah, you didn't at the time you made your character, you did not know how all the best way to mechanically represent that character. Now you do. So
Hmm.
let's rebuild your character. Like,
Yeah.
is there can you abuse that? Yes.
Yeah.
Could you use that to break a game if you really wanted to? Sure.
Hmm.
I don't think most people really want to do that. So my very long-winded answer ends up with like a, yeah, go ahead, respec your character. If
Yeah.
you're doing
Yeah.
it every week,
Yeah.
then
That's a
let's
problem.
talk
Yeah.
about like what you want out of the game and
Hmm.
why you're not satisfied with it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, in your case, yeah, sure, respec your character. Y- You know, uh if it makes sense to like work it into the plot or the
Hmm.
narrative, that's even better. But
Hmm.
if you also just need to be like, I need to just rearrange these points and pretend
Yeah.
that it's always been this way, that's
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
fine. So,
Yeah.
okay, what do you think about that big monologue I just gave?
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think what you're getting to is sort of the heart of it is like it's not this is not an attempt to break the game. It's an attempt to get closer to sort of like what the story that we're
Yeah,
trying to tell together wants to do, right? Because it's like, like I'm looking at my character sheet. Like in this specific example, I'm looking at my character sheet, meaning like I've never used that like
mm,
these points, right? And it's
yeah,
it's like, well, I mean, reallocating those towards something that is like narratively interesting and stuff, right? Like, yeah, right. So it's like the character is like every time that I cast a spell in that game, it's like, oh, like this feels like this is what the character should be doing.
hmm,
Every time I'm like trying to swing a sword or something like that, or like stab someone, it's like this does not feel like what I should be doing,
yeah,
right? So, and I think everybody can feel that at the table too, right? So that's like that's my specific example, but I think I'm with you. Like if a player came to me is like, oh, like this just isn't this isn't working or it's not quite right. It's like, yeah, by all means, like let's just
yeah,
change it. I think there are, change it a little bit. I think if someone's like, well, I want to start from scratch and like, okay, so this sorcerer character is now a fighter,
yeah,
a fighter or whatever. It's like, okay, well, let's just do a new character, right? At
yeah,
that point. So I
hmm,
think there are limits there. I think if like if you're kind of directionally correct with what your character is and you just want to modify it a little bit, like yeah, like let's do that. But like yeah, at a certain point, I think it does become like oh, this is just a new character at
yeah,
this point, and like that's also fine. And I think again to your other point, like if you're doing it every week, like let's have a conversation about that. But like once a campaign, probably once a campaign, like I think that's totally
yeah.
doable and makes a lot of sense
Well,
to do.
most RPG systems I've found tend to front load the critical decisions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so in most RPG systems, leveling up means slight tweaks to those fundamental core decisions you made at the beginning. And like if you're one of your fundamental core decisions was I'm putting a ton of points into this this whole section of the character that I'll never use.
mm-hmm.
Um you're developing system mastery as you play the game, but you're stuck with this character you built when you had no system mastery.
Yes, yeah.
That's not fun, and also like you're not really even playing the game in the intended way
Mm-hmm.
anymore, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what's the point? I
yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, that gets to something that does get stuck in my craw a little bit about systems. Is like, yeah, you do make so many decisions before you get to play, and especially if you're new to the game, like new to the game, it's hard to know like, am I going to even like this, or like, or is my GM, actually even going to use these rules? Right, like I
Yeah.
mean, if you sat down at my table and I was running D&D and you had spec'd your character up to like, I don't know, like be perfectly good at like handling rations or something, or
Yeah.
like exhaustion
Or you
levels.
put a ton of
Yeah.
stuff into like maritime skills
Yeah,
or
yeah, and you're
something.
yeah, or that, or like, I mean, I think the classic example is like the ranger in D&D, right? Like having all sorts of abilities tied to like the location that you're in, and that location doesn't come up. Right? There's like all these things that I think like can feel like, oh, this is going to be eventful and really important for the character, but like if that doesn't come up at the table, it's like, or it doesn't work out quite. It's like, okay, well, like what am I doing here? Right, like, it's actually one of the reasons why I like the funnel concepts so much, because it's like you can kind of play around with like these almost disposable characters that you don't quite
Yeah.
know yet before, and like get a feel for the systems, like, oh, like this is the sort of actions that I like to take,
Yeah.
like now
Yeah.
I'm going to start tuning this character that way, versus it being like, okay, like you've done an hour or 2 hours of homework, right, and then you're going to sit down at the table and like you're going to have to stick with that for the rest, for this this campaign you're running. Like it can feel a little demotivating. I think if you can get stuff right, like then it feels good. But for me, it's like I wish more systems had more built in for like, okay, like let's get a feel for this, and now you're going to make some more permanent decisions.
Agreed. I mentioned earlier this is a problem for video games, and I realize that the situation is a little different with respecking like a video game character versus
Hmm.
respecking a PC you've been role playing for a year. But
Hmm.
one of the first things I do when I start up any sort of like RPG related game is I Google, can you respec in
Yeah,
this game?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Because I mean, so many of these games, ask you to put your skill points. You have like a very limited number of skill points, and I need to know if I put them into lockpicking, is that a huge waste? Am I going to regret that 40 hours later?
yes, yeah,
Right? Like, what and tabletop RPGs, I mean, they have the same problem, but the solution, they're more flexible because at the end of the day, these are conversations with your friends, so it's
yeah,
easier to go in and respec
yeah.
than in a video game where there's only one item that lets you respec and it costs $10 trillion, and
Yes, yeah, yeah,
uh
yeah. I'm looking
anyway,
at you,
yeah.
Dark Souls. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, well, the Souls likes are, I mean, that for those games, the getting your stuff trapped in a garbage build is part actually of the
yes, yeah,
experience,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Everybody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's we should wrap up there. Do you have
Yes.
any final thoughts on that, or?
No, except I would be interested, in a future episode. I would like to hear how that campaign is going.
Mhm.
And I would be interested in more details about like how you came to the conclusion that your character's kind of quote mechanical build was not really supporting the game you wanted to play. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would like more details, maybe in the context of more details about how the whole campaign is going.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll give you the quickish answer is that there are a couple players who like I feel like their builds are about right. And whenever they take actions, they get a lot more dice than I get. So yeah.
yes,
Yeah. So
I'm
it's like
seeing you just big
uh
puppy dog eyes.
yeah,
Like,
like
why don't I get
what I
that
would
many
like
dice
I
when
mean
it's my turn?
I know, like I still get to do cool stuff and all that, but like yeah, there's yeah, yeah. But I mean, again, like I don't think I don't think Matt is going to have a problem with that necessarily, although he can tell me, I guess. But
And now
yeah,
that you've called him out on a
I know,
podcast,
yeah,
he
that's
pretty
fine.
much
Maybe
has to
you just
give
I will
way. So
never mention this campaign ever again. And that's how you know how it went. But yeah, we should maybe just have him on too. We
yeah,
can float
yeah.
that idea to him, and he
And
can
I
kind of.
think he might have played some vampire back in the day, so we can
Oh
get some
yes,
juicy what it was like in the trenches of
yes,
1998 Vampire the
yeah, the
Masquerade.
trenches of your trench coat. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Oh,
cool.
okay, that was a good
Yeah.
one.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, that does it for us. You can go listen to Andy and John on Zombie Strains. You should go check that out. And I think that does it for us. So I've been Chris Salzman.
I've been Andy Rao.
Remember, if your players are having fun, you're a great GM.